And press record. Bear with me. Right, I'm just going to do that little intro bit again. Right, how human of me. Right, so we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. So I'll be covering the benefits, some of the misconceptions and the myths around it. I had a lot of reservations about it coming from a nutritional therapy background. It really went against everything that I was taught as I was studying. Just talking about how to do it painlessly and, dare I say it, actually enjoy it. So I'm going to be going through some slides. It really isn't going to be death by PowerPoint this evening. So don't worry about that. I will kind of come in and out of slides. If you're watching on Facebook, obviously I won't have the slides, but I will describe what's going on. It's not going to be anything technical. I don't want to get super sciencey with anyone because, gosh, even I don't want to do that on a on an evening. So, like I said, I'm going to talk to you about how this can help you to lose and maintain weight, because of course we just don't want to go on a temporary diet and regain weight. And I want to help you to release anxiety around food. This is one of the big benefits that I've found and found for my clients, and boosting your energy levels and supporting digestion. Now, there are lots of benefits associated with intermittent fasting, but these are the kind of main ones that I want to cover. I'm not going to go into all of it. I'm going to point you in the direction of further resources should you wish to dig a little deeper. And I'm going to help you learn how to do it without feeling deprived and miserable, without feeling uncomfortably hungry, without thinking about food 24/7 or wanting to binge eat. Now, I will admit these are all things that I thought would be the case. And when I've tried intermittent fasting in the past, I have felt all of these things. I felt deprived, miserable, uncomfortably hungry, just couldn't stop thinking about food and wanted to binge eat. So there are ways to get to this point where you're not going to experience those negatives. So for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm a transformation coach, a nutritional therapist, personal trainer, yoga teacher. I'm putting podcaster there. I'm building up my podcast, but nothing like a positive affirmation there. Climbing and pole fitness lover. I'm an ex-dieter, so I've done the whole calorie counting thing, and I am a food lover. So please be under no illusion that I'm one of these people that would rather take a pill than have a meal. I love my food. So I'm going to go through some of the definitions and basics around intermittent fasting, talking about the myths and misconceptions, going through the benefits in a bit more detail. And I'm going to take you through my 4-stage process, which I've used for myself and for clients, and also talk about some additional support. So if we start with the basics, if you look up fast in a dictionary or Google, it'll tell you that it's an abstinence from food or drink or both for health, ritualistic, religious or ethical purposes. And with regards to intermittent fasting, it's basically an eating pattern that cycles between periods of eating and fasting. And there are different types and definitions. So you might be familiar with the 5-2 diet. That was kind of one of the first ones to really come onto the scene and be popular. So basically for 5 days, you eat normally. And then for 2 days in the week, you restrict your caloric intake to like 500 calories a day for women or 600 calories a day for men. I've done this. It's not a favorite of mine at all. As many of you know, I'm not into calorie counting. And this, for me personally, it kind of tunes into that unhealthy environment, unhealthy relationship with food. So alternate day fasting is another option. So again, you're eating normally one day and then you are fasting the other day. Another one meal a day. You might see this, especially on Instagram, referred to as OMAD. So literally one meal a day. That can be beneficial, but I do think it's quite difficult to get all your nutrients into one meal, even if it is a big meal spread over a couple of hours. And then time restricted eating, which is the form that I'm going to take you through. So if you have any questions as we go along, please do pop them in the chat box, because I'm going to come off the screen share. And if you're watching on Facebook, do pop any questions in the comments. So time restricted eating is basically where you have more than 12 hours of fasting. So this is generally best done adding on to your overnight fast, because obviously you're asleep for a big chunk of that. And this means it's from the last bite of food or sip of anything other than water, but black tea or coffee is fine. And that's to the first bite of food or sip of anything other than water in the morning. So black tea or coffee is fine, and herbal tea, obviously if you're adding milk, sugar or sweeteners to that, then that would technically break your fast. And this basically reduces your eating window. So I put a 12 and 12 split. That's what I would count as normal. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as I come to talk about the stages. So you can find an eating window that works for you, obviously, as long as it adds up to 24 hours. So I hope I've done the maths right here. You could do 14 hours fasting, have a 10-hour eating window, 18-6 or 16-8. So the 16-8 tends to be one of the most popular ones. So have a little think about your current situation. Do you currently eat or drink within 2 hours of your bedtime? So for those of you who have dinner quite late at night, how soon afterwards are you going to bed? And do you snack between meals? Even if you're doing healthy snacks, are you snacking between meals? And do you feel anxious if you don't know when you're next able to eat? And yeah, do you feel very uncomfortable when you've got more than a 4-hour gap between meals? So I would have said yes to all of these, even just a few years ago. With my nutritional therapy degree, with the knowledge that I had, all of this was quite normalized. So just make a note, feel free to pop any comments or chat in the box. I know obviously if you've been working with me, you're probably going to say no to these. So let's have a look at some of the misconceptions around this. So a lot of people say it's just a form of calorie restriction. Well, technically, yeah, it pretty much could be, because obviously if you're not eating for a big chunk of the day, then you're liable to eat less. But it doesn't just work by restricting calories. There are other changes in the body, which I will come to talk about a little bit more. Some people believe that it's a form of disordered eating. That's not the case, although if you do have an eating disorder, then I wouldn't encourage you to start with this way of eating. So it encourages overeating and binging. So that's another misconception and perhaps a worry that people might have about starting. Some people think that you're going to overcompensate. And again, I'll talk to you about why that isn't the case. And some people worry that it slows your metabolism down, because if you were learning about nutrition, or if you were even reading a lot of the magazines, even women's magazines in the sort of 80s, 90s, you know, we were told to keep eating frequently. Even when I did my nutrition course as part of my personal training qualification, obviously I had to take a lot of that with a pinch of salt, but we were given the analogy that, you know, rather than putting one big log into the fire, put the kindling in, and that's going to get the fire sparking more. But actually, again, that's not quite the case. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about the mechanisms behind the weight loss side of things. Like I said, I'm not going to go really deep into this because it's an evening. No one wants a load of information thrown at them, but I think it's helpful to get an understanding. So one of the main reasons why intermittent fasting is successful for weight loss is all around insulin release. So if you're eating frequently, then you are going to be releasing insulin. Now, many of you who've listened to my talks before will have had me going through the blood sugar curve. So just to kind of simply recap for anyone who's forgotten, or for anyone who hasn't gone through that with me, basically every time that we eat, we will get an increase in insulin, because as sugar gets released into the bloodstream, insulin gets released to take that sugar away into cells so that it can get used for energy. Once those cells are full, then it gets stored as glycogen. Once your glycogen stores are full, then it gets stored as fat. So insulin is really important, but it is a fat storer. So if we've got constant insulin release, now we can work on reducing the amount of insulin released by eating to balance our blood sugar levels, so avoiding refined carbohydrates, foods high in sugar. But we need to think about the frequency of the release as well. So if you're snacking throughout the day, then you're going to have constant insulin releases. And as insulin is a fat storer, we can't lose fat when that's constantly being released. So we can't lose it in a high insulin environment. So if you've got excessive insulin release, so if your blood sugar levels are being really poorly managed, that can lead to insulin resistance, and that increases your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So intermittent fasting helps to improve your insulin sensitivity because you've got less frequent releases. Does that all make sense? Yeah, good. Like I said, pop any questions. Stop me if anything isn't making sense. And looking at another hormone, so ghrelin is our hunger hormone and leptin is our satiety hormone. So we need to have a balance between hunger and satiety. Now, when you go on a low calorie diet, your ghrelin levels, that hunger hormone, it actually increases. But something about that intermittent fasting, ghrelin gets released from your stomach, ghrelin, that hunger hormone, can actually fall. And with leptin, your satiety hormone, intermittent fasting helps to improve the sense, oh, just saw some lightning there. So improve the sensitivity of our cells to leptin. Now, leptin is produced by fat cells in the body. So obviously, the more body fat we have, the more leptin will get released, and we can get, in the same way that we have insulin resistance, we can get leptin resistance. Let me just, sorry, I've just, yes, Sarah, that's very true. Ghrelin, think of it as your hunger gremlin. That's a nice way to remember it. I like that. So yeah, so it helps to balance that, which is really important, because obviously, like I said, one of those misconceptions is that you're going to be starving and have this uncontrollable hunger. And it's really kind of, it almost seems counterintuitive that fasting can help to keep you feeling full. So what else have we got here? Sorry, let me just, yeah. Other hormones. Like I said, this is a lot of hormonal work behind the scenes for weight loss. Human growth hormones. This is a really important hormone when it comes to building up muscles and for fat burning. Now, some people worry that fasting is going to deplete your muscles. They think that, you know, without this sort of glycogen there, the body's going to start to break down muscle tissue to provide energy. And that's not the case. So you actually get less muscle loss with intermittent fasting than regular calorie restriction, and you get increased levels of growth hormones. So this is great because it's going to help you to burn fat, and it's not going to affect your muscle growth if you're wanting to build your skeletal muscle, which is also a way to help improve your blood sugar balance. So everything kind of interlinks here. Now, I mentioned before, one of the concerns is that intermittent fasting is going to decrease your metabolism. But actually, studies have shown that eating frequently doesn't boost your metabolism as we once thought. And actually, doing an intermittent fast, doing that time-restricted eating, can increase levels of noradrenaline. Now, this is a stress messenger. Now, normally we'd be thinking about wanting to reduce our stress hormones, but this is what we call a hormetic stressor, which basically just means like a simple stressor that's beneficial in the body to help it adapt. So that's going to increase the metabolism and help to break down your fat stores. So hopefully that makes sense, some of the mechanisms. Like I said, I could go really technical into this, but we don't need to. We just need to get an understanding as to how it works. So addressing some of those misconceptions, overcompensating. Yes, after a period of not eating, you are going to eat more at your next meal than if you were eating in that more frequent pattern, but you're not actually going to eat as much as you think you will. So, even if you did like a 24-hour fast, you're not overcompensating to the point where you're eating a whole day's worth of food at your next meal. So it's not going to undo any of that food missed during fasting. So like I said, yeah, so it works out, if you're into calories, it works out about 500 calories more than you would eat. And the net effect of all those hormonal adaptations that I've talked about, they're not going to undo anything. So that's the weight loss side of things. Now, energy. This is one of the things that seems really counterintuitive because obviously food gives us energy. So why on earth would fasting give us energy? Well, when you've got that improved blood sugar control and increased insulin sensitivity, that has a really positive impact on your energy levels. And it improves what we call metabolic flexibility. So it improves the way that your body uses energy. So it makes it more efficient at using up glycogen. It makes it more efficient at burning fat as a source of energy. And if you think about it from a survival point of view, when our bodies need food, how do we get the energy to go out and seek it? So, in hunter-gatherer times, if your caveman's hungry, your body's going to come up with a way for him to actually be able to go and seek food. So that's kind of, if you just really want to get into the sort of understanding, I just like to think of it in that way. I like things simplified sometimes. So if you've ever done a ketogenic approach, when your body's starting to burn down the fat, that's when you get ketones released, and that's a form of brain fuel. So when your sugar sources are low in the body, you can burn up fat to produce ketones. So that's where you get the brain food. And that's why quite often you can get a sense of clarity during fasting. Now, digestion. Fasting reduces the stress on the digestive tract. That's pretty self-explanatory. You're not eating, your gut isn't having to do anything. So it's giving it a chance to rest. If we're snacking all throughout the day, then our gut never has a chance to rest. And we've got this kind of housekeeping crew called the migratory motor complex, the MMC. And that has to kind of sweep through the digestive tract. It's kind of like a road sweeper after a Saturday night. It needs to go in and just clear all the rubbish out of the digestive tract, but it can't do that if we're constantly eating. So it's really good to support the digestive tract. And by allowing the MMC to work, the gut lining can repair, and it also helps to increase levels of our good gut bacteria. So it's got a positive impact on our gut microbiome, and that improves bacterial diversity. And that improved bacterial diversity has been linked with weight loss as well. So there's lots of kind of indirect ways in which intermittent fasting can help with weight loss. So does that make sense, what I've talked about so far? Let me know any comments if not. Okay. So other benefits as a way of life. Well, first of all, it's free. You could even argue that it's cheaper if you're eating less, if you're having less snacks, and you can be as flexible as you want. When I talk about the different stages involved, then that should allow you to see that. And believe it or not, it actually relieves your anxiety around food. This is one of, thank you, Sarah, glad it all makes sense. It can yeah, it can relieve your anxiety around food. And it is definitely one of the things that you actually have to try to really kind of understand that. And you get more enjoyment from meals, you know, when you're actually leaving proper time for them, you look forward to them, but not thinking about them in a really kind of obsessive way. And of course, you don't need to eliminate any food groups. So I mentioned about that process of ketosis, where the fat can get broken down to ketone bodies, give your brain a boost. You don't need to cut out carbs. Okay, so that's always a good thing. So there are some caveats. So some people do need to be cautious. Pregnant women, I'd also say women trying to get pregnant, you might want to have a chat with your healthcare provider. I mentioned before, if you've got a history of eating disorder, this isn't advised if you're still going through a recovery process. For anybody else, this can be a really positive thing to change your attitude towards food. But yeah, if you find that going in a negative way, then please do seek help from a registered specialist with eating disorders. If you have a chronic high level of stress, I mentioned about that sort of boost in that noradrenaline, enough to be a hormetic, a slight stressor, which is really positive in this case. But if you're already under a really high amount of stress, don't do this. Work on that first. Do work with a nutritional therapist to help support the body during that. And then this can come later. If you've got reflux, if you've got GERD, then speak to your doctor about it first, because for some people, the longer periods between meals can actually trigger or worsen some symptoms. Type 1 diabetics, again, speak to your doctor. Children, very elderly, this might not be a good idea. So I asked you before how, how you currently eat. So if you're saying yes to any of these, then the different stages are really important. So the stages, first things first, balance your blood sugar levels. Now, anyone who knows me has probably heard me talking about this. I can guarantee that any client of mine will know this. So to put it simply, we want to combine our proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And we can, I'm just going to move, I don't know if your pictures are in the way there, but you can see on this plate here, that sort of proportions the foods. That plate is something that I use a lot with clients. And you can choose slow release, unrefined carbohydrates, and increase your levels of fiber with 6 to 8 portions of vegetables a day. So those are things that are going to help to balance your blood sugar levels. Now, that is your starting point. If your blood sugar levels aren't well controlled, then I'll be honest, intermittent fasting is going to feel absolutely gross. It's going to be really miserable for you. So do not skip this stage. So next up, we want to ditch the snacks. So we want to make the meals larger. If you're used to having 3 meals plus 2 snacks, the chances are that your food is going to be split between 5 meals effectively. So you might find that you want to make your breakfasts, lunches, and dinners bigger. When I switched to this, so when I ditched the snacks, I probably overcompensated a little bit with my meals, which is fine. Psychologically, I think that can help, but over time, you will get used to that. When you're allowing 4 to 5 hours between meals, you'll need to get comfortable with the idea of mild hunger. Now, that can be a challenge because it's something that we're not encouraged to do nowadays, basically. We have a huge snacking industry, loads of wonderful, healthy snacks. That doesn't mean that you have to avoid those foods. It just means that you could maybe have some of those healthy snacks as a starter, or a dessert. So get comfortable with mild hunger. It's actually a desirable feeling when you're wanting to lose weight. We don't want to go into hunger. And mild hunger will get comfortable for you as you're intermittent fasting. In between meals, it's fine to have herbal teas, black tea, or coffee. So like I said, these are fine to have during your fasting period. So that's stage 2. So moving on to stage 3, this is when you want to extend your fasting period. So I liken this to stretching out a rubber band. So like I said, that 12-hour window between dinner and breakfast, that should be your norm. So use that as part of stages 1 and 2, and then just gradually increase that, stretch that rubber band, gradually increase that by an hour. Okay, once you get comfortable with that, then you can just stretch it to wherever feels comfortable. Okay, and then finally, be flexible. So yeah, I had to put a bendy yoga picture in there, just a little pun on being flexible. But work around your timetable, work around your lifestyle. So for me, when I'm extending that fasting period, it helps me to skip breakfast. So I will have lunch and dinner. If I was doing a shorter fasting period, say 14 hours, you could still do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For some people, they might want to skip dinner. So work with what works for you in your schedule. And don't beat yourself up if you eat before you planned. So as long as you're making 12 hours your minimum, if you'd planned to do an 18-hour fast, but you get really hungry at 16 hours and you eat, then don't beat yourself up. That happens. That's listening to your body. But yeah, like I said, just gradually stretch things out and increase by an hour. Over time, you might even feel comfortable at some point to go from, say, dinner to dinner and do a 24-hour fast. But you won't go a whole day without eating. So that's what I would, anything more than 24 hours, I would say that goes more into fasting rather than intermittent fasting. That may not be the technical definition, but in terms of how I work with clients, that's how I like to think of it. So hopefully those stages make sense. Just a little recap. So that's balancing out your blood sugar levels. Second of all, ditching the snacks. Thirdly, just stretch out that 12-hour fasting window by an hour at a time until you get comfortable, and then you can stretch that by another hour. And then finally, be flexible, work around your schedule, your lifestyle. Don't beat yourself up if you eat before. So yeah, those are the 4 stages. And I promise, if you go through them, go through each stage until you feel comfortable with it, and then go to the next stage. I've gone straight from a regular snacker to doing fasting, and it really didn't feel good. Psychologically as well, it's something that you need to build up to. So you have to go through that second stage before you can allow those longer periods of time. So a note here for women: if you're cycling, if you're menstruating, you may need to work around your cycle, especially the week before your period is not a great time to fast. Best time to fast is day 1. So day 1 is the first day of your period, up to 14 days, which is generally ovulation. If you're postmenopausal, if you're a guy, then you don't have restrictions. But it is an important thing to just honor your cycle and work around that. So if you're ready to get started, if you want to try intermittent fasting, use those stages that I've talked about and go at your own pace. Find a timetable that suits you and mix things up. So you might want to try a few days of intermittent fasting a week. You might want to start off with 1 day a week. Find what works for you, mix things up. If you're menstruating, work to your cycle. As your fasting periods get longer, I recommend just being mindful of your schedule. You might want to keep yourself a little bit busier, because quite often hunger can come up from boredom. We have a preconceived notion. Sorry, I'm just laughing. I said boredom, and I hope I'm not boring you. So we have kind of preconceived notions as to when meal times are. So there can be a little bit of a psychological adjustment there. But if you do want to get some support when doing this, then, you know, for this reason, for those challenges, I invite you to join me, basically, in the You by Anthea Together group. We can move through the stages together. As I mentioned, this is a challenge we're going to be doing this November. So within the group, there's going to be support. I'm going to be popping up, doing mini lives, answering any of your questions with the challenges. So with the meal plans, they're all going to be designed towards balancing your blood sugar levels. As I mentioned, that's a key factor. You know, no matter what stage you're at, we will go through the stages. This is optional. So if you're already in the group, you don't have to do this. But the meal plans are always designed to balance your blood sugar levels. And of course, I'll be offering some tips and solutions. So in the group, you've got the weekly meal plans. With that, you get a shopping list just to make things super simple. And each week I do live nutrition Q&A. I can go through the meal plans in more detail. I can answer any questions that you've got. You get online workouts and yoga. Those are live, but they're also recorded for you to do whenever you want. And you've got that support of community. And I'm actually going to be introducing a monthly prize for the most supportive and engaged member. So I like to be able to say thank you to anyone who is supporting everyone else. So I will definitely be doing that this November. And this is a challenge for this November. I like to have a different theme each month. So you can join, you're not under any contract. You can just join for a month's challenge and then leave whenever. And in the group, you get special discounts for specific companies. And I am working to keep building on this. So with a challenge, like I said, you can just join for a month. You can leave whenever you like. You've got access to all previous content, so all the previous workouts, info guides, all the meal plans. So you can take away as many recipes as you like, and that is £40 a month. Okay, so like I said, you can join just for the challenge. You can download all those recipes and meal plans, and then you can leave at the end of the month. There is no obligation. Obviously, I'd like you to stay. It is a nice little community. So that is what it offers. And as a bonus, as a thank you for watching this, if you book before the end of tomorrow, so before the end of Wednesday, the 2nd of November, you can get a free 30-minute online personal training session with me. And if you're already a member, I don't want you to lose out. This will be for you too. So if you'd like to do that, and I would love you to join, you can head over to the website. So that's www.youbyanthea.co.uk/courses. Message me if you want me to send you a direct link, but that is, that's the next stage. If you want to give that intermittent fasting a go, if you're still maybe a little bit apprehensive, you want some support, some hand holding, you want some delicious, healthy recipe ideas to support that, then do join. I would love to have you there. So let me know if you have any questions, just type them in the chat. And I would be more than happy to answer. And this always happens with me, if you come away and you think, oh, damn, I meant to ask that, drop me a message. I'll be more than happy to answer it either directly, or I can answer it into the group. Then, just let me know. So thank you very much for watching and listening. And I'll be popping this recording up. I'll make it available for anyone who couldn't participate. I know I got a message from someone who was stuck on a bus, so couldn't watch this. So yes, I will be making this available. So again, thank you for watching, for listening, and I hope that was helpful. I hope that answered any questions. I hope it inspired you to give it a go. So thank you very much, and I will see you soon. I'm just going to stop recording.